Matt, I never. Actually, how do I start this again? Let me start this again, Dylan. I've never seen a guy pick up so many dudes as I've seen you pick up dudes driving around in that Bronco in Charlotte, man. I mean, now I know what it's like to be a hot woman. Like, we're driving around, like, in the diner, dudes are coming up, like, driving down the street, guys are whistling. I mean, even when I got to the airport, when you dropped me off, I had my bags. Like, some dude, like, is helping me with my bags and, like, stares deep into my eyes and says, man,
looks at you lustfully.
She's a beaut.
I didn't know where you were taking that. That caught me off guard.
I figured.
It's true, though. I've never really thought about it. This must feel like what it's like to get catcalled. Where were we? I think we were driving out of the hotel when that one guy looked at you and was complimenting you on my truck. And I was like,
yes,
fine, whatever. I'll still take it.
I got mad comps. You know, and even at the airport, like, I was walking in, like, dudes were like, yeah. No, it was really something else. So is that your day-to-day life when you're driving that thing around?
Humbly, I say yes. It's basically a brand new car, right? It's a resto mod, so everything in it is brand new with the exception of the body. And I don't travel far because I work here, but when I'm out and about, especially now that it's almost fall, I mean, my God. I'll jump in that thing and drive down the road. You know, what's really funny is I had this big debate with Dad when I first got it as to, you know, why I wanted it so bad.
Yeah.
And because, you know, Dad's got all these crazy cars and, you know, he is a big car collector. Sometimes you can drive a car and when you approach people with that car, they automatically get this vibe that you think that you're better than them or vice versa, right? If you see somebody in one of those kinds of cars, I can think of 3 people off the top of my head driving those kinds of cars. The intention behind driving this thing and being behind the wheel of this thing is I'm important, I'm powerful, I got a lot of money. And I want you to feel some kind of way about that, right? To be jealous or envious, whatever. What I love about Broncos in particular, classic Broncos, is it has the exact opposite effect on people. It's not because it doesn't meet all of those criteria from the first circumstance, but it constantly welcomes people in to talk to you about it. It's insane. It happens all the time.
Well, I think the learning lesson from that is if you're a woman out there and you're having trouble meeting Mr. Right, get yourself one of these.
A vintage Ford Bronco was my dream car. I wanted that car so bad.
I don't know what sort of dude you'll
come to you
attract.
like flies on poop. It's true.
Yes. Well, and there we have it.
Welcome
I did get an
to the
opportunity
marketing
to try
mindset.
the marketing mindset. Yeah, we got to marketing the women here.
Exactly.
I did get an opportunity to sample. What was it you called that? Something pudding?
Liver mush.
Liver mush.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Dylan, I'll send you the video. It was, come on. I mean, that was extraordinary, right? That was Southern delicacy, just for you.
Yes, do you approve? I don't mind it, actually. It's not the best thing I've ever had, but it's not the best thing he ever had, but he does approve. I approve.
You know, anytime somebody uses the word delicacy around food, it means it just doesn't taste good, right? I mean, like, how many delicacies have you ever had that are actually
That's fair.
tasting?
That's fair.
Yeah.
I take it back. Southern tradition, I would say.
Matt, today let's talk a little bit about some budgeting and forecasting.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, as we start to get here, you know, the off season will be right upon us pretty soon, and it's usually, you know, in October, November when guys start to think about the budget for next year. And obviously, digital marketing is an important part of that. So, frame this up for us.
The last time I was hanging out with you and Patrick actually was that brief spot on the Boardroom Buzz. And Patrick said to me before you jumped on, he said, Matt, when are you going to get out from underneath the shadow of your dad? And I thought to myself, Jesus, he casts a long shadow. And this forecasting and budgeting is another example of how, in a lot of respects, the way that we made our business and the way that we planned to go forward, we didn't know that it wasn't just like standard best practices. Because my dad was a high school graduate. Do you know what I'm saying? No MBA, no higher education, no whatever. An idiot savant with numbers, right? A like crazy Rain Man situation at the diner, right? We had no idea that the practices that we had for forecasting and budgeting at that time were extraordinary in preparing for your next season or your next calendar year, right? But also controlling your profit margin and giving you benchmarks month over month to help to know whether or not you are on the right path or if you're just off that path a little bit and you need to fix things before the next month hits. So we did this practice at Killingsworth in October of every year. We spent the month of October. And if you're cool, I can just kind of walk you through what that process was like. And then, if you've got any questions or you think anybody that's listening might have some questions, just punch holes in it. Cool?
Let's do it.
So what we would do is in October, we would take our growth percentage, however much the company was up on average for those first 8 months, right? Let's pretend it's 40%. And then we would say, okay, we've got 3 more months left in the year. Last year, we made this much money, X amount of money during those 3 months. So let's go ahead and add the average of 40% on top of that, right? To project where we're going to end our fiscal year at the end of December, right? And so that kind of gave us a way to look at the fourth quarter and be like, okay, great job, everybody. You guys are killing it. We're gonna be up 40% before we get out to the rest of the year, right? So we find that number. And then the next thing you have to do to prepare this type of budget, this type of forecast is go ahead and project how much you would like to grow in the next year, right? Let's pretend next year we want to grow by an additional 50%, okay? So in our first year, we grew by $1 million. After we did that exercise in October, we projected what we were going to make it through the rest of the year. We added that on top and like, look, we made $1 million. Great job, guys. $2 million, whatever. But we're going to use the example of $1 million. Then next year, in 2025, what we want to do is grow by an additional 50%. So we're going to multiply that $1 million times 1.5, and that's going to give us $1.5 million, right? And then what we do to get that forecast ready for everything. This is we're talking about marketing. So this was an exercise that determined what my budget was going to be for the next year, right? But this has so many applications, right? So we've got this $1.5 million, right? Now I need to determine what my budget's going to be in 2025. And for me, that was always 6%. So my budget for the next year was going to be $90,000, right? Keeping it simple, keeping it small, right? So over the course of the 12 months in 2025, I have $90,000 to work with, okay? So just quick review. We forecasted the fourth quarter. We've added that revenue to kind of see where we're going to end that first year. Looks like we're going to end at $1 million. Great job, everybody. We want to grow by 50%. So we're going to plan to be at a $1.5 million company the next year, right? And here is everybody's percentage for what they're allowed to spend. Salaries and wages, that is X, right? So hopefully south of 20%. For chemical costs, 2%, right? For marketing, 6%, right? That's your budget. That's your forecast. Matt Rogers, you get $90,000 to work with the next year. So then the next question and the final question before I really get down into specifics, and there's one additional kind of layer at the bottom. The next question is, how do I know how much of that revenue should I be able to spend each month? How much of that $90,000 do I spend in January, in February, in March, in April? Once we've got that percentage, we got that $90,000, then what we do is in the year that we're in 2024, we're going to say, okay, we are going to take all 12 of these months and we're going to determine how much of our total gross revenue was acquired in each month. Maybe that's 4% in the month of January, 5% in the month of February, 7% in the month of March, etc. Right? We're going to determine how much of our gross revenue we realized in each month. And then what I'll do is I'll take that $90,000 and I will take those percentage numbers, and that's going to determine how much each of my months I'm allowed to spend of that $90,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I guess on that point, so you're basically taking the percentage of total marketing spend from the last month, from June of last year, and you're going to apply that same ratio to the subsequent year. How do you know, though, if you're actually doing it right? And what I mean by that is, I mean, what sort of seasonality, if we talk about Charlotte, what sort of seasonality is there in digital marketing? I mean, should guys be spending money in February, or do you just dump it all in the summer?
That's a great question. You should be investing in, this sounds like a sales pitch, but I can say it with 100% assurance because we were doing this when we were running the company inside as well, working with an external digital marketing company. You should never not be investing. There's always people looking for your services, and there are always people looking for a deal. So even if you're not inside of your season, exploiting your digital marketing team to target people who might look for a deeper discount is going to bring that, we've talked about lifetime value. It's going to bring that recurring revenue into the fold. You may have spent a little bit more to get it, maybe because you've offered a deeper promotion, right? But there really isn't an off season for digital marketing. There's planning, there's a space that you need to plan, and then there's a space where you need to execute. And so how do you know if it's working? That's a great question. So in January, let's say I have 4% of that $90,000. That is $3,600 that I can spend in January. It's not a lot of money, right? But we're keeping it small, keeping it simple. I got $3,600 that I can use in the month of January. And this is hopefully in relationship with a great digital marketing team. I'm able to take that money that when I was working at Killingworth, it was Pinckney, or hey, Matt at Lizard. In the month of January, you've got $3,600 you can spend. I need you to give me a projection of how many leads you're going to be able to return.
Gotcha.
Based upon that $3,600. And they're going to give you, what we give our partners is a forecast of leads based on their forecast of budget, right? You say you've got this much to spend next year, $90,000. Over the course of those 12 months, we're going to be able to deliver X to you in terms of leads. And then Paul, you're not in Florence anymore, you're back in the PR. You, Paul, and PR with your service industry company get to say, okay, are these many leads in relationship to the closing ratio of my inside sales team going to yield that 50% spike in growth that I'm looking for, right? That's when you start to get really particular about what we're doing, is it working, and what do we need to change so we can stay on path with that projected revenue that we use to kind of start this whole party.
So we talked about the Killingsworth budgeting process. I mean, and we zeroed in a little bit on digital marketing, but what sort of applications does this have on the whole enterprise and other areas of the business?
We're going to talk about Paul's PR service industry company, right? What this does when you take this kind of formula, this process, and apply it to your digital marketing, to your salaries and wages, to your chemical costs, to your gas costs, to your insurance costs, right? What you're able to do is control your net margin. There are so many companies that I work with that have no control over their net margin. They spend, they don't have a lot of money, they're exhausted, they're tired, right? And they don't kind of receive the benefits, the rewards of being this exhausted and this tired. And so when you do this, when you take this application and you apply it to other parts of your company, we'll use chemical costs as a great example, right? In our formula, Paul was going to grow his company by $1.5 million in the month or in 2025. And Paul has decided that his budget for chemical costs is 2%. So we're going to take that 1.5 times 0.02. And then we know Paul's got $30,000 to work with for chemical costs. Same thing. You take those gross revenue of your realized gross revenue by month, and you break that $30,000 down into percentage for January, percentage for February, March, April, May, June, right? You're creating it's like when you're bowling and you're bowling with bumper lanes, right? You're creating that bumper lane so that if, it's getting late in the game and your arm's getting exhausted and you're going straight to the gutter, these bumper lanes, these kind of guides get you back on course and get you down there to your goal, which is at the end. So that's really the application. You can apply this process, this formula to every aspect of your company. And when you do that, what you find is you slowly start to grow your net revenue. So it doesn't change how much you're working, right? It doesn't change how exhausting it is, how people are driving you nuts, your staff is driving you nuts, your customers, bad reviews are driving you nuts, whatever. But it is increasing the amount of money that you're getting at the end of every month. And then it kind of makes it all worth it in the end, if that makes sense.
Do you spend much time with your clients doing this sort of stuff, or is this the clients that do it? Or so what does the fall look like for you then?
So coming up, I'm about to send an invite to an SMS invite to our clients to ask them if they want to meet with me for an hour with some pre-set, templates that I've already built out where I can plug their data points in and kick out these forecasts for them. It's a what do you call it? It's a service that we're doing for our partners to help them. And we don't need anything from it, right? The partnership is where we glean our profit, right? Yep. I do this exercise for our partners coming up, and it'll be all in the month of October. Anybody that is working with us that wants to meet with me to kind of go through this exercise, we'll block out an hour. I'll get everything ready before we show up, and then we just kind of go through this with them. Most of my partners, including a couple of my biggest partners, will literally be making knee-jerk reactions in season. It's insane, Paul. Mm-hmm. You know my dad, you know my family. Yeah. We've never done that, right? It's always been, hey, this is what we said we were going to do last year, and we're going to do everything that we can to kind of hit that nail right on the head. And so I had a company last year that was making budget decisions in March. Budget decisions for how they're going to spend in March of the year they were going to spend it in. It was 100% insane. So I like to try to train our clients to get out as far in front of it as they can.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not a huge proponent or fan of budgeting per se with regard to business because I think sometimes it can get off track. But I will tell you, it's a great exercise most people go into next year without even thinking about this sort of stuff, right? Yep. They kind of, like you said, shoot from the hip. Yeah. So it is an important, I think it can be very important. And it can help people actually think about where they're getting returns on particular spend, right? When you actually are looking back historically and doing a budget, it kind of forces you to say, hey, this is the money we spent. What sort of return did we get for this?
Exactly. People don't make that connection. They'll spend the money and they're not tracking how that stuff is coming in. They're not tracking their relationship with their digital marketing company or how much they are spending on chemical costs or gas, right? We were clinical with our business, right? Our numbers were turned in on the 6th of every month, and every manager at every level met on the 15th of every month in the conference room to review previous month's performance. Everybody sat through everybody else's P&Ls, right? There were 9 companies, so it took a long time. It took most of the day, right? Yeah. Went through every single line item. And that kind of governance helps you make sure that your company is thriving, but also that you as the business owner are thriving, which is truly the most important. You've got the most liability. You have the most risk, right? You're investing the most, and it's sucking the most life out of you. Even though some of your employees might feel like their job is sucking the life out of them, it doesn't compare unless you're running your own business. You don't even have the framework to understand. So at least on the journey, you should be receiving the fiscal benefits of the work that you're putting in. And this exercise kind of stretches that margin out as far as you can.
Yeah. Matt, I think one of the things that, your father was meticulous about numbers, and he really drove the bottom line. And at the end of the day, these businesses trade on a cash flow multiple. I think this is an important exercise for everyone to do every single year in their business, but it becomes abundantly more important as you get, 2, 3, 4 years out from a sale to really start to track every single dollar and nickel and make sure that there's no waste in the business.
Absolutely.
That's not only labor and chemicals, that's digital marketing, every aspect of it. And Patrick and I have talked about this on The Buzz quite a bit, which is literally going down your P&L. Starting at, you got the revenue line and going down every single line on your P&L. Look at labor, look at your labor percentages and start looking for cause and effects behind those numbers and really drill deep. So I think this exercise, along with the budgeting, is useful to everyone out there. So I appreciate you bringing it up today.
Heck yeah, man.
All right, dude. Until next week.
Next last week?
It was great seeing you last week, by the way. Good to be in Charlotte.
It was great.
I didn't expect to be there for more than an hour on the connection, but as you know, the tropical storm here gave me a serendipitous and delightful retreat there.
Little break.
Thanks. Yeah.
Appreciate it.